Cautiously optimistic is what stood out for me from this report. We've heard from the 312 firms that we've surveyed what they have to say about the challenge they've gone through, how they're coping with uncertainties. So in this panel discussion that we're going to have now, we have 4 experienced practitioners in the private sector ecosystem. We hope this discussion will bring out some perspective, some lived stories, experiences, to add some flavor to the insights that we've been hearing this morning. I'm also very keen to hear from the panelists about their outlook on the future of business in Ethiopia for the next 1 or 2 years. So let me introduce our panelists. Our first panelist has successfully managed a thriving manufacturing business. She started very small 9 years ago, and today her business employs 102 people, operates a medium-sized manufacturing plant with 3 large showrooms in Addis Ababa, in prime locations. She's here with us today to share her valuable insights on how to lead a growing business in times of change. Please welcome Mr. Gosaye, Managing Director of Bemister Furniture Manufacturing. Our next panelist is a long-term supporter of entrepreneurs in Ethiopia. His institution provides a comprehensive package of services for businesses, for entrepreneurs, ranging from ecosystem building, business development services, access to finance, and market linkage. He's here with us today to share about the latest developments from the government side and what the government is doing to support the private sector. Please welcome Dr. Hassen Hussein, Director General at the Entrepreneurship Development Institute. Our third panelist is an entrepreneurial voice who has started and led several businesses for the last 30 years. He brings decades of experience and deep understanding of Ethiopian business environment. He's currently focused on advising coffee farmers on sustainable farming methods. With his wealth of experience, he will share some insights on how businesses are coping with change and uncertainties. Please welcome Omar Bageresh, a director at B-Agro. Our fourth panelist worked in economic development for the British government for over 20 years. He has worked as a chief trade negotiator and has traveled across Africa and Asian countries in support of the private sector. He's currently managing UK's largest development program here in Ethiopia. He's here with us today to share some perspective in terms of private sector development approaches. Please welcome Paul Walters, Director of Development for the British Embassy. Thank you all for being with us today. I'll just ask a first round of questions to everyone, and I'd like to give more time for the audience as much as possible. I'd like to start with you, Omar. What does coping with change mean for businesses?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Angel. So, coping implies that there are challenges, and in my experience, there are always challenges in business. Private sector players always have to deal with challenges, which for some players, they are actually opportunities. Different entrepreneurs react differently to challenges, but in over 3 decades of doing business in Ethiopia, there was no time where I felt there were not deep and serious challenges. But I have observed that over the years, some actors in the marketplace thrive when there are challenges. There is an old saying, they say you have to invest when there is blood in the streets. So I can see that situation now today in Ethiopia, where certain entrepreneurs are shy and timid and are too concerned about the overall situation, if I may say. And there are players who take this moment as an opportunity to expand their businesses. So as any businessman has to be extremely optimistic, because you can't be an entrepreneur if you are not. I don't think we want to frame the situation as where we have to cope. Rather, I'd rather frame it as an opportunity where we can pivot into a new situation.
Thank you, Omar. It's interesting, especially the copying and taking this opportunity that change that's bringing. With that, Mr., can I come to you and maybe you can share how have the last 2-3 years been for your business? What did you do to cope or to take advantage of the opportunities or the change that was in the industry?
Okay. First, I would like to say thank you. And I've really enjoyed the presentation. And I believe that it has really captured the business environment, and the challenges that we face. So, thank you for the invitation. So, coming to your question, the phrase that you used previously, what was it? Cautiously optimistic. So I'd like to say, to use the same phrase, because we are optimistic, and it has really been a good journey through this period of time, because we have really changed in this period of time, because our business has grown significantly during this time. So, in short, this is what I say.
Maybe let me add some more interesting points from the presentation that we've heard this morning, especially the inflation, the forex, what the 312 businesses said about raw material costs, factors of production overall. How was that for your business? And maybe just represent your industry and for the entire manufacturing business or the furniture manufacturing business.
In general, when you're manufacturing business, it's a challenge to cope with the growing inflation, because whenever you take a project or any kind of work, and when the inflation hits, it's a challenge, because the anticipated cost for the project will grow significantly, and what we're facing is extreme change of raw material price. It increases sometimes weekly, sometimes daily, sometimes monthly. So from the past 3 years, it has been really a roller coaster, or I don't know how to say it. It's extremely high, the inflation. So it's been a challenge, as it was presented previously. The change on the inflation, since we can't do anything about it, we just pass it to our customers. As much as possible, we try to hold it, but mostly it's passed to our customers. But most of our customers understand, because it is what we see in our country. So we're coping with it.
I heard Dr. Tedros mention earlier about the demand being intact for some of products in this country. So let me just add this to you, and I'll come to the other panelists. How is the demand for your products over the last 1 or 2 years, like given with the inflation that we're experiencing today?
With the growing demand for real estate, our demand goes together with the housing, so it has been growing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Let me come to you, Dr. Hassan. Please share with us the government's latest thinking in terms of supporting the private sector, ecosystem, business ecosystem. What are the policy priorities? We've heard some good news yesterday night from the startup event. Maybe on that, and then.
All right, it's a tough question because to speculate on what the government is thinking is a bit beyond my pay grade. But I could at least talk about what is said and what's announced. How many of you were there yesterday? Not a lot of people. So we had a startup event yesterday where the Prime Minister, all the ministers, regional presidents, and different branches of government, the startup community, and the finance industry, major players in the ecosystem were present. And I think I would call it a watershed moment because for the first time, the government indicated that building a robust startup ecosystem is going to be it is main priority in the coming years. Some initiatives were announced. I wouldn't call it bold. Actually, it was quite timid, but still significant. Some of the announcements include, first of all, there will be businesses will be labeled as startup, and by virtue of being classified as startup, they will enjoy a range of benefits, access to finance, access to working premises, and that kind of stuff. So a support package will be customized for startups. I think that's a major step. The second thing is in the revised commercial law, when somebody starts a business, they are not required to submit their lease agreement. But if you go to a one-stop center, it is still required. So the announcement was that the requirement will be totally removed. The other initiative was with regard to foreign currency. Startups will be allowed to keep 100% of their foreign currency earnings. I think this is a significant development. And access to finance remains a big challenge. Two major initiatives were announced. The first one is the Ethiopian Investment Holdings, in collaboration with both the private sector and the public sector, would establish a fund that would provide access to finance to promising startups. The other initiative regards the effort by the Development Bank of Ethiopia to provide funding based on idea, funding and for an equity based financing. The other thing, the Ministry of Trade would also form a special window for startups. That's also significant. The same is true with the Customs Commission. These were some of the announcements. Overall, I think we are seeing a greater commitment from the government to promote entrepreneurship and innovation in the country, and greater commitment for the growth of enterprises.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. Let me just add one more question to you. because you also work, or your institution work with entrepreneurs and businesses on this side, how are businesses dealing with the change, the uncertainty? We also hear all these amazing reforms. So how has it been translated to, to the day-to-days of businesses? Because you also bring that.
I think Bemister would be in a better position to answer this question. About a month ago, I did a survey on our one-stop service centers, their perception of how things are going, their perception of their own effectiveness as a unit, and the two things that jumped at me are first regarding the number of jobs created and the number of enterprises created. What the study revealed is up to 75, from 50 to 75% of the data is made up. The second finding is that the government has built a lot of working premises, sheds, as they call them, but none of the respondents, there were over 112, and there was also a focus group and on-site observation. None of the individuals involved say that the sheds are being used for the intended purposes. I think that highlights some of the challenges enterprises are facing. The access to finance, my observation also corresponds with the findings of the study presented today. It is really tough.
Maybe Mr. because Dr. Hassen recommended you. I just wanted to ask you, what would have helped you? Of course, your business has grown over the past few years, but what would have helped you maybe, get into being a large manufacturer or like a higher or double the workforce that you have today? What would have been so useful for your business and your peers?
The main thing, I believe, is working space. I think this is the question of many entrepreneurs. As you know, rent expense is very high here, so that would have been really helpful. And also the other one is finance. It's always related with related with the collateral. So when you're a young entrepreneur, mostly you don't own houses, so it's a bit difficult. So that would have helped. Yeah.
Thank you, Bemister. Paul, you've worked with many African and Asian countries supporting the private sector. How do you understand the current policy framework supporting the private sector in Ethiopia? Let's start with that.
Thank you so much. And well, first let me start by congratulating First Consult on the launch of the Blue Book. I think you've done a brilliant job in giving a voice to small businesses, allowing them to tell their stories, and it's great that we're able to respond to that. I wanted to highlight three areas, and probably three areas why the UK, as a leading donor to Ethiopia and a leading donor to this sector, is cautiously optimistic about the future ahead. First of all, on macro, there has been talk about the government's kind of relaunched homegrown economic reforms that we hope will be backed by an IMF and debt relief and another donor support. This is obviously going to be crucially important. It comes across in the report, comes across from the interventions. You need to get the macro right to provide that conducive environment to create access to forex and lower cost inputs. It's crucially important. Another area on the macro that's really important that the government is pursuing is getting greater access to world markets, acceding to the WTO, making full use of its duty-free access to countries like the UK, and also continental expansion as well through the Africa Free Trade Agreement as well. I also see a renewed energy. We're focused on small businesses here, but actually small businesses really need the big businesses to succeed as well, because if they can get within the supply chains and the value chains of the big businesses, that can provide a real sustainable future growth source for the small businesses as well. And I see a renewed energy and a renewed push from the government to get the industrial parks moving, to get industrialization removing again, despite the challenges that we've had globally and some of the domestic shocks as well. So that's at the macro level. At the kind of meso level and the support that the government is providing, it's great to hear from Dr. Hassan and the big six. Congratulations on the event, the startup event yesterday. These are really important initiatives. I think with regards to small businesses, it's really important for the government to know when to support and help, and when to just step back and let small businesses flourish, because I'm sure not all of the interactions with government are appreciated. It comes through in the report. We hear time and time again, small businesses, they need help with predictability of regulations, tax, land, property, licensing. None of these things are straightforward for businesses, and they need a very smooth interaction with the government. They need that predictability, they need that information, and they need an ability to discuss and feed back their experiences with the government. And the final area, which is probably why I'm really optimistic about the future for small businesses in Ethiopia, is technology and youth, and that combination is so powerful. It's great to hear from entrepreneurs like Mistra and the success that she's had. She and her team are accessing technology like none of us have ever seen before. All of the barriers are being brought down. Ethiopia can leapfrog other countries. With the help of Safaricom and EthioTel, more Ethiopians and more small businesses now getting access to 4G, 5G connectivity, financial services coming into the market, being delivered through handsets. The old pressures of collateral and all these kind of things can be overcome through digital footprints and ID cards. So I'm really excited about the technology. I'm an old man, I won't understand these things, but it's the youth of the small business entrepreneurs in Ethiopia that are going to embrace this technology and give Ethiopia a really bright future.
Thank you, Paul. That was great. Omar, can I come back to you?
Sure.
And just ask, because you also put it at, change can also be opportunist. Businesses can also tap into it and invest actually in this at certain times. Mm-hmm. How do you see the businesses in Ethiopia dealing with this? Do you see a lot of them, being cautiously optimist, or some are stepping back? Just your perspective.
Yes, thank you. So it really depends at which kind of businesses you're looking at. So there's a lot of young energy in the market. There's a lot of young people who are either looking for jobs or trying to start a business. And in that space, you can see a lot of optimism that comes with age. Then if you look at big companies or factories that are unable to get inputs for their industry, you can see a bit of concern. So really it depends on the spectrum. There's a lot of different players, and I think it's important, as it was mentioned earlier, that one dissects the different kinds of different actors in the market and to better understand what their needs are. But overall, my personal, let's say, take on where the economy is right now is it's really at a crossroad. We are at an intersection where this economy can fly, and that is my personal, let's say, feeling. I have experienced the last days of the Derg, where the Derg government introduced a mixed economy in a last-ditch effort to survive, which then when the EPRDF came into power, there was this similar kind of optimism in the market where everything was possible, and the government made huge liberalizations. And right now, I like to call this Ethiopia's post-colonial moment, where things are really changing. It's out with the old and in with the new. We have a leadership that is introducing radical, extremely radical, let's say, liberalizations. And much of this is misunderstood. But I think it is important to maybe to try to extrapolate what where this will take us in 5 to 10 years. There are huge projects being planned, like a new airport. And the spillover effect of all the things interacting with each other will be, I think, extremely profound. And I take personally an extremely optimistic view of things. So cautiously optimistic is not mine, but I say now is the time to invest heavily and go strong for all the business people out there. And in terms of the Blue Book, I'd like to personally congratulate Nabil, because Nabil is someone I have been interacting with from the moment he came to Ethiopia, and is one of the people I'm most proud of, because he has managed to build a business by taking an optimistic view of things. And today he's able to advise many MSMEs in Ethiopia. So the one comment I'd like to make towards the Blue Book is to make it a bit greener and include the agri-foods into your next version. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Omar. With that, you answered my second question that I was going to follow on, like your outlook on the future of business for Ethiopia. And you've also mentioned about like what the government is currently doing but to have more resilient businesses for the next 2 to 5 years at least. What should we be expecting from government, and how should the businesses be behaving? You've already mentioned, yes, let's invest heavily, but just if you have anything to add on this, because I'm going to ask this question for everyone, like you can answer it from your own perspective.
Thank you. So, again, we are at a crossroads in terms of internet connectivity, in terms of startup entrepreneurs and disruptive ideas out there. It's really fascinating to talk to 20-year-olds who are programmers. They're in extremely high demand in the market right now. It's very rare to find good programmers. We sometimes have to find people from Kenya and India to do some of the digital work we're working on. And I think to Paul's comment earlier, a little bit of allowing the entrepreneurs to just participate with less, let's say, oversight. And to the doctor's point earlier, they're going to, yesterday's startup event promises to remove a lot of the barriers for startuppers. And I think the future is with the youth, and much of what is going to happen in Ethiopia will be led by technology. And this is my personal.
Thank you, Omar. Mr., what's your outlook for businesses, on future of businesses, including yours and your friends, your industry? What does it look like for the next 2 to 5 years? And with that, what should also the government's role would be?
I haven't really thought about it, but just in general, my vision is to become a world-known brand with furniture. So when it comes to the government, favorable policy changes are always good for businesses. So the points that I stated earlier, and regarding taxes and import goods, it's always good to improve, taking notes from entrepreneurs. So I believe there is always room for improvement. So when it comes to finance, working space, tax, foreign currency, it's always good to improve in these points. So it's always good to talk to entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Mr. I want Dr. Hassan's and Paul's response on this, and then I'll open it up for audience. So prepare your questions.
I am very bullish on the future of business in Ethiopia. I agree with Omar. I think we have one of the most dynamic young population in the country. They have ideas. They are daring. They want to explore different possibilities. The only problem is our institutions are made for our grandparents, not for me, not for my children. So I think that's a major problem. Be it the public sector or the private sector, they're not responsive, very cumbersome. We like to make things very difficult for people. So even though I am very happy about the initiatives that announced yesterday, I worry how they will, what they will look like when they're put in practice. So I think we have to raise our voices. But what gives me hope is that all of the initiatives that were announced yesterday, none of them came from the government. They came from entrepreneurs. We talked to entrepreneurs of different sectors, and the government was willing to consider all of them. I used to be a rebel, and I still consider myself a rebel within the government. But what gives me a lot of hope is they're willing to listen. They're willing to try. Let me give a couple examples. Since the COVID times, we came up with a package, a capacity building package, really a program, public entrepreneurship and innovation. When we launched it, we feared that we may face resistance, but to the contrary, that is the aspect of our work that has exploded over the last couple of years. And yesterday's event is perhaps a culmination of those efforts. So access to finance is a big issue. The good thing is this problem is known by all actors. It has a lot to do with the regulatory environment. And the other thing is, I agree with Paul. I think in this country we are used to expecting the government to do everything for us, including starting businesses. ስራ የተፈጠረላቸው ተብሎ ቢዝነሶች ይቋቋማሉ። Most of them are micro enterprises. They don't show a lot of progress from year to year. The attrition rate is dismal, and I don't see them as entrepreneurs really. I think we have to leave this field to entrepreneurs themselves. Allow people to fail and learn from their failure. I think this handhold, you train them, then they expect you to provide them access to finance. Once access to finance is provided, they want working space. Once the working space is provided, they want you to provide them with market linkage. I think the government has to get out of this, this business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hassen. Paul, let me give the last chance to you. on your outlook on future of businesses in Ethiopia.
Yeah, thank you. Well, what I'm taking away is, the message I'm taking away is we all need to be bold. We need to be more like Omar. We need to be enthusiastically optimistic, not cautiously optimistic. We have to build trust between the private sector and the government along the lines that Dr. Hassen is speaking about. Government need to listen, needs to know when to help, when to step back, and need to have opportunities for feedback. Need to embrace the technology, AI, data, connectivity. This is going to be Ethiopia's future. And we need to embrace the youthful entrepreneurs like Mistra. Trust her, and the country won't need donors like myself in the future. Do all of those things, be bold, do the reforms, trust the private sector, and I'll come back as a private investor rather than a donor.
Thank you so much, Paul. Let's now open it up for the audience. We can take questions. 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Hi, this question is for Dr. Hassan. You kind of mentioned.
Please say your name and organization.
What was that? Name and where you're from. My name is Balai. I'm just an investor. You mentioned about an equity-based financing. If you can just touch upon that, what it looks like, what's the time frame? And then the other one is the entering of the foreign banks into Ethiopia. I know there's been a conversation around that for a long time. So what's the likelihood of that happening? And if you can just kind of tell us, when that happens to other countries like Ethiopia and Africa, what it did to the economy.
Okay, my name is Aswa Ababa, and first of all, I would like to appreciate First Consult to bring us to discuss on this issue, because this issue is at this moment very vital and very crucial in Ethiopian side, and it requires the integration between government, private sector, development partners to solve this problem, not given for one institutions or for one part. How we can integrate to solve this problem. This is the main important questions, because without integration, to address the issue of SME, which is very difficult, the finance issue, the working premises, technology issue, and the different marketing issues are there. So how we can integrate to solve the problem of SME is what it is already identified or recommended. And the most important thing is, which I want to raise it now, most of the times we can put such assessment like this. Before 10 years back, with the help of World Bank, we identify the missing middle. And to address the missing middle, we establish different technologies, how we can bring technology from outside to Ethiopia, and how we can lead this by Development Bank of Ethiopia, lease finance, and we establish all these very important institutions. But when we are looking this addressing of the missing, the study which shows that, the research which shows that, still 2%, it is not very, very low. How we can able to, that's the micro level supported by microfinance institutions. The large enterprises supported by banks, but still the small and medium enterprises, it is not addressed properly, not only in the finance aspect, but also in technology aspects. It shows the gaps. But we identified this problem before 10 years back. What is behind this? Why we are not focusing on the issues what were identified? This is one of the important questions. And the second one is, most developing countries, get solution when they face challenges. The history which showed that when we face challenges, we have to establish the way out, and we are focusing all the problems. How we can able to overcome these challenges? or what is the experience, what you are already done through these challenging times. Especially inputs we can bring from outside, but we can substitute at national levels or Ethiopian levels. So this is the lessons which is helpful. We can ventilate and we can able to transform to all other enterprises. Otherwise, if we are focusing on the problem, we are not able to overcome the challenges what we are facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I share both discussants' view of the outlook regarding the optimistic view. I used to be a civil servant for many years, and I understand the inertia that used to be there to change a single policy, even within a single institution, let alone, at macro level. So we are witnessing, particularly in terms of policy, the government doesn't shy away from exploring new territories or ideas. So that is I think, an optimistic outlook. But I would like to get an opinion from the business side or from the government. I think Omar is also a businessman, I know that. And also from the development partner side as well. The key problem for SMEs, particularly manufacturing ones, to grow is the supply side, or the linkage, or the value chain. And I think it is with this intention of solving these problems that the government has taken an initiative, I think, with Central Statistics Agency to map the manufacturing industries at country level. So what I would like to hear from your side is that how can it help to actually create linkage so that the supply side, both in terms of know-how transfer, in terms of marketing, and we have seen that 93% is about input, and 75% is being imported. Maybe this figure could be different when it comes to manufacturing, but linkages are very important. So how do you see as a solution this mapping of companies so that linkage can be created to solve cost problem, supply problem, and the time issue as well? This is my reflection. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's start with Dr. Hassen, right? The first question was directed to you on equity finance. Maybe. Oh.
So this thing is new, experimental. It's an effort by the Development Bank of Ethiopia. So what happens is the bank will invest in the startups, meaning meeting their financial needs without requiring collateral, and the bank would have an equity stake in the company. But as the startup begins to pay down the loan, the entrepreneur would, regain more and more of his or her equity. About 600 individuals, startups have applied for this program, and another 350 who were incubated by us have applied. A day before yesterday, what the news was that the board did not give a go-ahead for it. It went all the way to the board, and the board was like, let's put this thing on hold. But yesterday, it was announced as a policy initiative. I am assuming that the board will take the issue up again and approve it. The bank has allocated, last year they allocated like 4 billion birr they're willing to put in more money into it. And I believe it would be operational in a few months, but I'm not, I can't be 100% sure, because we have been through this for a very long time. With regard to the entry of foreign banks, I think that's very likely, especially with ongoing negotiation with IMF. As far as timing is concerned, I would not go there, but I think with the launch of the capital market, which I expect to take place within a year, maybe 6 months or so, foreign banks would begin to enter the market. The fact is, some of them have already done so. They have opened up shops, not full-fledged banking business, but to explore the situation, to seek partnership with existing banks. As far as the impact is concerned, I think it will have a very disruptive role, and our financial system, our banks have been making a lot of profit from catering to the haves. I expect the entry of more competition into the market will force them to take the SME market, the startup market, more seriously.
Thank you, Dr. Hassen. There was a question by Ato Asfau on access to finance and how it was identified as a major problem even 10 years ago or before that, and it's still coming up as a major issue. And then there is a more of optimistic view from the side. So maybe let me direct this question to Omar and reflect on that. And also, if you can include Ato Hamed's question on in terms of companies trying to create linkage, import substitution, and trying to do some good work here.
Yes, so thank you for the question. There is, I feel, a concentration of intermediaries in most supply chains. And this concentration causes a lot of obstacles for new participants. So creating transparency in this, at least in the agri-food systems in particular, is critical, because a lot of the government initiatives is to create jobs, but creating jobs also requires that we keep the youth in the rural areas, in other urban areas, rather than drifting all to Addis Ababa. Secondly, the importance of promoting startups should not be an Addis Ababa event, because every town and every other city has youth that are equally hopeful and optimistic and are keen to also do startups. So frequently my observation was, let's think of Ethiopia as not just Addis Ababa. That is a classic case of Russia, where 80% of the economy is concentrated in Moscow. So that is a little bit dangerous. So in terms of the policies of the government, that are extremely liberal and really open for private sector participation. There is it was mentioned earlier that there is a shortage of foreign exchange. I think the government has to take an extremely conservative view when it comes to forex control and managing foreign exchange. Today, you find extremely expensive cars in the streets of Addis, when there are some manufacturers of cars trying to sell cars here. So a little bit of protectionism, but not too much, is necessary to stop the forex leakage, the unnecessary forex leakage. And in terms of the startups, I hate to see this new startup initiative be led by the government. It has to be led by private sector. Mentorship is a very important element in trying to encourage young startuppers in how to lead a business, with due respect to government technocrats who have not run a business, I don't see how they can teach them how to run businesses. So I think private sector has to be part and parcel of this process. And finally, I'd like to say that the startup ecosystem is half complete with the startuppers. The investors have to be also developed. Angel investors, venture capitalists within Ethiopia. Not all private equity must be from abroad. The private equity community in Ethiopia is non-existent. So this is what I'd like to.
Thank you very much. We're running out of time. But Mr., there was a question directed to you. Maybe let me just rephrase it in terms of linkage, because you're in manufacturing, even our programs in the past and currently, we try to link large enterprises with small enterprises, do businesses, prefer to outsource and work with smaller organizations, have you tried to work with other organizations or other institutions, for your accessories, for example, do you source it from, another smaller manufacturer? And if you've tried so, was that process, how was that process?
Small businesses are not discoverable in our country. So it really lies on us. I mean, we have to promote ourselves, what everybody is doing. So it's a bit difficult to find what you're looking for here. Yeah. So just to to add some points on the financing arena. We have been working with the NatBank, which is a good start because they are supported with the USAID and they have an opportunity to match with the collateral that the entrepreneur provides. So it has really helped us. So just to add on that, it's just limited to 10 million birr, I believe. Half from us, half from the bank and the USAID. So that's a good start, and it's the other point is I want to highlight on is from the government side. Tax breaks are very essential for our companies. It's limited to some amount of period. We have used a 1-year period, tax period, which is good, but we really need additional time because as we're producing import substitute products, we need companies like ours to work on products so that we can use local knowledge, we can create local job opportunities. So I believe this is very important. The other point is I believe that the opportunities that the government gives and what they want to improve should be also integrated with the entrepreneurs. You have to talk with entrepreneurs, you have to come to us just a little bit. And it was a good start since you have visited our company, and it's a very good start. So I think we need to see more of this, and more entrepreneurs should give their input in policies as well. And towns and other cities are very important because there are always problems that should be solved with entrepreneurs. So I believe the government should be more open to this.
Thank you, Mr. Paul, let me come to you for a final remark.
Can I add?
I'm being told to wrap up.
I'll give my final remark.
Thank you so I think the access to finance issue is going to be here with us for a very long time. Even with the opening of the capital market, even with the entry of foreign banks. Why? because we have very few enterprises to speak of in this country. In order for us to provide jobs and other opportunities for our youth, we need to be able to create millions of enterprises. And the young people are willing to do that. And the startup ecosystem is still at the early stage, budding stage. But there are signs that we are set for an explosion. Let me give you an example. And we have centers of excellence in entrepreneurship at many universities. One is Awasa. So in 2020, we put out an ad for people with ideas, business ideas, and there was I think 27 individuals submitted their application. A year later, it was 830 people. And we put out ads, and they require a lot of finance. With new enterprises needing money, new startups, the number growing. I think access to finance is going to be a big issue. There are many efforts to fill this gap. The World Bank, through the WEDE program, Women Entrepreneurship Development Project, have pumped 11 billion birr during the last 10 years. And the program is going to be renewed, hopefully, with some new innovations. There are also efforts by players like the MasterCard Foundation that have put in a lot of money to break this bottleneck. But with all the effort, I think this issue is going to be with us for some time.
Thank you, Dr. Hassen. Paul, did you have anything to add to this? Okay, thank you so much. It looks like our panelists, or my panelists, have moved us away from cautiously optimistic to a bit of optimism. Some problems will remain, with us, but some of the points that were mentioned is let's go out of Addis, let's be optimistic, let's embrace technology with the infrastructure investments that are taking place right now in the reforms, and if the government is going to actually listen to the entrepreneurs and bring the private sector to the forefront of the initiatives that are being done. It looks like the panel is kind of going to a more optimistic view. Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you so much for our audience. Thank you.